First of all, I have to say the opinions today are my own. They're not a part of any other organization. They're not a part of any other employer I work for. So I'm a pulmonologist, critical care and sleep physician. For today's podcast, I'll talk about sleep disorders, which is kind of a passion I've had for a long time to discuss as a former medical director of Carolina Sleep Services and really enjoyed sort of getting into the weeds of sleep disorders, especially for our community. So thank you for having me today, because I think sleep disorders are something that we don't talk about as a community very much.
Well, it's not even that we don't talk about it. We're not even aware. Yeah. Honestly, like it's something that kind of hit my radar maybe about a year or so ago, because there's a lot of like these power lifters and trainers of professional athletes, and they started talking about the importance of sleep and recovery and performance. So that's kind of where it hit my radar, because we'll get into that a little bit later, but it definitely sparked an interest in me. And I started watching a lot of videos and stuff. So when I decided to start doing this podcast, you were the first person that came to mind, because that's what I had associated with you with. I didn't even know about all the pulmonary stuff, which, by the way, for all of us lay people, that's like to do with lungs and respiratory systems. Or can you please explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I also do a lot of work related to advanced diagnostics in lung cancer. So lung cancer awareness, lung cancer disorders, and those things are associated with lung cancer work and diagnostic studies. And some of the technology is kind of my fun hobby is to, some people golf. I play with medical technology a little. and so it's just one of those things I enjoy.
That's awesome.
But I also do critical care medicine. And obviously with COVID-19 currently being the pandemic, a lot of my work has been focused in the last 6 months, particularly focusing on the pandemic management.
So that's interesting, actually. You just brought that up. And again, if you feel like we're going off into the weeds somewhere, just bring me back. But with all this COVID stuff going on, how are you practicing? Because I noticed there's a shift towards like telemedicine, doing things over Zoom like we're doing right now, or some other kind of format. But what I can only imagine it's making it easier for everybody to connect and see their doctor. But what are the challenges too that come with? What are the pros and cons of that kind of interaction with patients?
Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons. Actually, I have a couple of podcasts on that as well. So you're happy to send our listeners the information on that.
Yeah. Send me the links and I'll post it into the description.
Absolutely. So telemedicine, obviously, and especially as it relates to sleep, actually, is really nice because we don't oftentimes want to go see a doctor for common things. And so telemedicine has really taken off in the pandemic. We've been inching at it for like the last 20 years, but really in the last 6 months, we've done more towards that route than ever.
Right.
So I do a lot of virtual critical care, as we call it. We basically, in fact, I'm zooming in from my home computer workstation where I can actually monitor critically ill patients from 3 states away.
Oh, wow.
So, and so we have presence across several states in our health system. And so it's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of amazing what you can do, the high level decision-making you can do. I mean, it's not perfect. You can't do everything through it. It's missing some of the sort of tactile parts of how we practice. But that being said, with modern diagnostics, communication, team-based care, and boots on the ground that you can trust, you can do a lot of things through this method.
So are you able to actually monitor people sleeping?
Well, you
remotely?
can. So in sleep medicine, we've done remote monitoring for decades, actually. We're basically are videoing people in the sleep lab, in a sleep facility. And now with home testing now taking off since the pandemic, it's been taking off for a couple of decades, but really since the pandemic now, most sleep testing has shifted to the home by far and away. And so we have home devices, wearables, other devices that have technological monitors. People can sleep in their home and see the quality of the sleep actually to discuss it with their physicians.
So you mentioned quality of sleep. How do you define quality of sleep?
Great question. There's probably, to simplify things, I think, for our listeners, I think in the sleep world, we tend to think of sort of 2 aspects, the quality of sleep and the quantity of sleep.
Okay.
First one, let's start with the quality. Quality of sleep means we generally have what are called biologically for several decades we've known sort of for half a century, we've known that our brain goes into a deeper sleep. Sleep is restorative. It's necessary for certain biological functions. You mentioned recovery. You mentioned all kinds of awareness, fatigue issues, psychological factors, cognitive factors that sleep really affects, that proper sleep affects. So you need high quality sleep to do that higher performance. But sleep also, from a quality perspective, people have go into various sleep stages. And there's sort of like two main classifications of sleep stages, to make things simple. One is called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep.
Right.
The second being non-REM, or non-rapid eye movement sleep. And there's several stages of non-rapid eye movement sleep. Most people get about 20 to 25% of rapid eye movement sleep to be restorative. And then roughly. And then a lot of rapid eye movement sleep happens in the latter half of the night, the second half. So is
that where we're actually dreaming? Is that?
Yeah, it's associated with dreams, absolutely. And so with the loss of muscle tone and dreams. So the idea is that, you want to achieve a certain percentage of non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement sleep, especially the rapid eye movement sleep, which is oftentimes in our society curtailed. Because what happens is we try to shorten our sleep cycle to get our whole checklist done. So we don't get enough quantity sleep. So we don't get enough rapid eye movement sleep. And so you end up with this sort of, a lot of our people in our society don't sleep long enough. And in return, don't get the high quality that they normally need. They may not sleep through the night. They may not they have a lot of awakenings for a lot of reasons, whether it be some of the things that the cycles that they have, the choices, some other issues like anxiety or other concerns that might be waking them up at night. External noises might be waking them up at night, or they may do it to themselves. We oftentimes tend to be our own worst enemy in our society. Not everybody, but some people are trying to really hard to staying up late was considered really cool when I was younger. To kind of, when you and I were younger, it was like our friends would stay up really late and do all this cool stuff. And we'd
be playing video games mostly up until 2 in the morning.
Whatever it was, now I have, a teenage daughter stays up late to study or do other stuff. Another one stays up late for other reasons. And so you start thinking through it. You're like, you watch our society kind of do this to ourselves, and we don't get enough sleep. So what ends up happening is potential adverse health effects. And so loss of quality and quantity of sleep is now scientists are showing that it's not only associated with lesser performance from a psychological factors, cognitive factors, memory issues, but also sort of deeper psychological issues like predilection to, in children, for example, loss of sleep or poor functioning sleep can be associated with ADHD.
Interesting.
To be associated with other behavioral disorders, school learning issues, keeping kids back a little bit and sort of hindering their academic performance. As we get adulthood, things associated with poor work performance, maybe burnout. Maybe some of the burnout that we're seeing is partially at least explained by some of the sleep issues that we're seeing as well. And then other health effects come into that aspect. So not only just sort of mental health disorders like depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, but now you're talking about cardiovascular diseases, immune effects. So we talk about COVID-19 a little bit. A lot of us believe that actually one of the best things you can do to combat COVID-19 and other viruses and is bolster your what's called the innate immune system, your innate ability to fight infections. And so one of the principal parts of that is getting enough rest, enough exercise, eat well, and rest enough. And so you need to sort of pay attention to your body.
That's something that's really ignored, I think, especially like in the media and stuff. They talk about obviously we wear the masks, because we're not just protecting ourselves, we're protecting other people in case we have it, right? But there's a talk about masks and social distancing and things like that. But there's like zero focus on your own immune system. What can you eat? What supplements and vitamins should you take? How much sleep should you be getting? Is your body recuperated and recovered so it's strong enough to be able to fight any possible thing? Because we're seeing such a wide variation of types of symptoms. Some people are completely asymptomatic, and some people are under having very severe symptoms. And what role is that immune system playing in it? And then what role is sleep playing in your immune system?
Right. That's exactly right. And so, and especially now going into flu season with flu season and COVID-19, we're all going to be most likely at some point exposed. So if you're going to be exposed, you want to make sure your body is ready for that. And a lot of us have a very strong immune system if we pay attention to it. So things that we can do to help ourselves, our chances of getting stronger and combating that is, one of the things is getting proper rest. But like you said, exercise, rest, attention to wellness. In the sleep world, one of the things I tell people is if you're using an alarm and hitting that snooze alarm multiple times to wake up, it's probably it's a chance that actually you may not be getting enough sleep. And you need to really look back and say, what can I do to make sure I get enough rest? Am I really getting enough? Or is that just the way I am? Is it just the circumstances I'm in? Is that just something I need to tough through? Or should I potentially maybe do things a little bit different to recognize and perform at a higher level?
Yeah. Maybe you can give us some tips on how to get that better sleep. But one thing I've noticed is when I'm working out regularly, I sleep great because my body is literally exhausted and can't wait to get to sleep. When I don't work out, I find that I'm kind of having this light, dreamy sleep all night, and I wake up tired.
Yeah, that's a very common thing that many of us see, and so a lot of us recognize that muscle exertion, muscle fatigue contributes to a deeper level of sleep. And I think especially nowadays, we mentioned the COVID pandemic, what it's done, it also makes a lot of people very sedentary. Yeah. They don't get out. They don't get around. They don't even, some people are even nervous.
Guilty. That's me. Big time. I'm at my computer all day or I'm driving in my truck, literally not moving nearly as much as I used to.
Right. And so one of the adverse effects of that is we're seeing, the people with this feeling less tired, even though they're not exerting themselves. They're feeling more tired.
Yeah.
They're not exerting themselves. And part of that we think is just lack of combination of things, not just the social engagement, the stimulation we get from that, but also the lack of muscle usage.